Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of IQRA TV, to another program of Real Talk. Mufti Yusuf has been my guest today. We've been talking about this month of Ramadan that has just left us, and how that has impacted on us, not just during the month of Ramadan, but now that Ramadan is over, how it's affected our lives. Has it affected our lives? Has it made a difference to the way we were before Ramadan? Have we learned something this year that we maybe not have learned last year? Has it transformed the way we behave, the way we act? And much more importantly, has it made our iman stronger than it was pre-Ramadan? And I think that is the key question. And we've been discussing various different issues around that. And I think I'm sure many of our viewers probably have given answers to themselves. Has it been transformational for themselves? Has it made an impact on them? Has it made an impact on their families? And have they noticed any of that changes? But we also talked about whether we really do practice the month of fasting in the way it was really supposed to be handed down to us, or have we modernized it, made it suitable to our needs, suitable for Muslims of the 21st century, and have we lost the real touchy-feely thing about what fasting is all about? So I hope you found that interesting. But also, this month gives us, as we've said, gives us the opportunity not just to become better Muslims, but we become more generous during this month of Ramadan, because we know Allah multiplies the reward in this month of Ramadan. So for every £1 you give, He multiplies that umpteen times, and therefore most people in the month of Ramadan make that extra effort to try and provide more from their earnings, from what they have, to those who are less fortunate with us. And I know Mufti Yusuf Sahab, on IQRA TV, you've been instrumental in leading some of the appeals with the other colleagues in the month of Ramadan. And we know that the Muslim community, this came out by one of the most respected newspapers in this country, which is the Times, an article last year which showed that the Muslim community is one of the most, if not the most generous communities in this country. Millions and millions of pounds are donated by the Muslim community for various good causes around, not just in this UK, but also around the world. Now, you've been leading one of the leaders of the campaign, IQRA TV, asking people to contribute generously. I know you've done, you say, the 5 appeals. Just remind people.
5 emergency areas. We were working on, Al Khair does work in 50 plus countries during the time of Qurbani, but in Ramadan we were delivering, I think, 31 or 32 countries food parcels. 5 areas we were working massively in, and this was the emergency areas: Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Gaza or Palestine, and Burma. So £500 for 5 areas, emergency food and water and medicines. That was.
And how did that appeal go?
That went fantastic. Actually, we launched the Yemen appeal especially strongly due to Yemen and its crisis, and a life is being lost as we speak. And this is due to what? Starvation, lack of food, lack of water, lack of medicine. And it's as described by the UN as the worst humanitarian disaster
in the world.
Currently unfolding. Definitely. And millions,
and
half of the population.
Doesn't seem like it's going to end very quickly.
No. And Imam Qasim hopefully will be doing a visit there in Yemen and delivering vital aid and medicine and food there. And we're hoping, and I hope, we can do something like we're doing in Syria. In Syria, we started this project back in 2018 in Ramadan when Imam Qasim went there, about the kitchen, Syria kitchen. So daily kitchen feeding up to 13,000 people daily. So if you can do something similar, if not better, in Yemen, this would be ideal, inshallah.
I mean, they could save thousands of lives.
Thousands. And if you look, the cost in Syria, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, depending on the food we provide. So £3,000 a day, feeding 13,000 people.
MashaAllah.
So just do your maths there.
You're joking.
It's not. It's realistic. It's realistic.
Gracious.
And
for such a small amount of money.
Yes, 13,000
people being
yes,
fed.
Yes, that's just basics. That's just dal and rice, bit of khubz or bread, plain rice, nothing fancy, nothing amazing. But
not the biryani everybody's been having during the month of Ramadan.
But you're looking at saving lives.
Yeah, exactly.
This Syria kitchen had at its peak 30,000 people.
Right.
It's a sort of a hub where people are traveling towards maybe Turkey or other areas. So leaving the sort of areas where there's a lot of fighting and shelling and bombing.
The conflict zone.
Yeah. So this is in Raqqa. This is and it's still there, and it started up. So we were trying to fill these 30 days and more per day. So subhanAllah, we had a few donors from Yorkshire and wider giving daily donations. Subhanallah.
I mean that is an example of some of the real generosity that our Muslim community is really well known for. But what about some of the people who come from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh? These madrasas here, that madrasa there. I mean, some of these organizations are not registered in this country. They're not registered charities in this country. I mean, Al-Khair is a registered charity like some of the other, big international and sort of charity organizations. These people come year in, year out. They take the money from people like yourself and myself. They come to our masjids. They set their stall there. And they take thousands of pounds, right?
If not millions.
If not millions, yes. From and I'm sure some of them deserve it and they need it. But I've heard a lot of tales and a lot of stories, unfortunately, where not all of that money actually ends up with those who actually are deserving of it. I mean, have you had any examples like that?
I mean, yes. Unfortunately, I've been working in this sector for a while now, and we should consider due diligence checks, and this is paramount to any council mosques, any committees, any sort of hubs that they have in their regions and cities. These checks and balances and should be done by the individual authorities involved, and rightly so. Like a lot of local authorities placing restrictions on whether it's cold selling and door knockers, whether it's your leafleting or marketing or collecting or promoting. You have to have a license in some local authorities. Some have made this mandatory and you could get arrested or fined. So these are some of the safeguards the local authorities would place. And if somebody does come to your house, check with your local authority or check with that individual the IDs and stuff like that.
Then won't you be accused of, I mean, some of these people who come to our mosque and our madrasas and our homes are people who come from back home from our villages. So, I mean, you come from Alipur, for example, in India. So there might be somebody who comes from Alipur and, because of that connection.
You've got to have, I mean, whether it's like Al-Khair is registered in certain countries, right, as a charity. So we're registered in Afghanistan and many parts of the world. And those parts of the world we're not registered, we're working with partner organizations or other charities that are registered. So hence the government giving us wherever we are, letting us work there. And that should be the case for anybody else, that you should have the legal paperwork or documentation saying, okay, I'm a registered charity in so-and-so country or this area and I'm doing X, Y, and Z. It's a couple of minutes of research and looking up on.
One of the issues that confronted a lot of people during the month of Ramadan, is this issue about all these big charities, every one of them, and there was some social media activity around that, is how much are these charities taking money out of what is being collected as part of the administrative costs. And I've noticed over the last few years that because this issue is confronting a lot of people, and more young people are now becoming conscious of these issues, because if you give zakat, you have to make sure that 100% of your zakat actually goes to those who are deserving. And more young people are now saying, hang on, we need to check where our money is going is correct. What do you say to those people who ask questions about, does Islam allow charitable work to actually take out administrative and other reasonable expenses. Is there an issue around that?
I mean, let's go back to basics. Our code of conduct, our life, and everything else that we do is the Quran and Sunnah.
Exactly.
إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين. Allah's given the permission.
Right.
Okay. So if Allah's given the permission where you spend or where sadaqah and zakat is going, and one of the areas is those that are on that particular duty. So amilina alayha is the words used by Quran, and those that are in that position, whether it's somebody from the Darul Islam and Amirul Mu'mineen allocating a collector or tax collector or etc., or whether it's somebody from the community, from the society, from the public saying, okay, this is so and so, and he will or she will be doing X, Y, and Z. So there are rights that yes, you can give that particular person some kind of costings. Having said that, most of the charities, and subhanallah, a lot of the youngsters and teenagers coming out and showing, subhanallah, leadership and where we live in Europe and how we have these structures, and especially things like the Charities Commission and the numbers and tax and everything else. Don't rely on forwarded messages and hearsay, I would say. People
but what about what does Islam say that if you know any charity that sets up, okay, are they allowed under Sharia law, under the Quran's interpretations of the Quran's rulings?
Indeed, that's without a doubt. Without a doubt.
How much is there a figure mentioned in the Quran?
No.
So what does the Quran say? You should take reasonable expenses.
Yes,
but does that apply to zakat or does that apply to everything?
It applies to everything.
So whatever you collected, the Quran gives permission.
Quran gives permission to those who are doing that particular duty.
Right.
Okay. With
so if I
due diligence and care,
so if
with certain conditions.
With certain, so what are the conditions?
Now this is you're opening up a can of worms here. You see, you can't self-regulate, self-assess, and self-do anything. So if you set yourself up, and maybe that's where you were going to ask me the next question, as opposed to an organization showing transparency, showing leadership, showing accountability with meetings, minutes and agendas, as well as accounts being shown, just like a bit like something like what most Muslim charities and all the other charities in this country have to do with what? Regulations and Charities Commission. So any individual, youngster or teenager or whoever it is, what would they or he or she do? Get the charity number of that particular charity and put it onto the what? Charities Commission's website, and check it out in terms of what's being done and who's being paid what, or what kind of projects they do, expenses, etc., etc., etc. they're doing. That's very easy, and you'd be able to pick your top 10, top 5, top 1 or 100 charities doing this different things. So it's not rocket science.
Going back to the basics, okay, that information is available. It's open to the public. Any charity that is registered, or any business for that matter, that is registered, has to post their accounts online, and the accounts can be quite detailed. The question goes back to you saying that Quran says you can deduct expenses. Unfortunately, I've just been told that we only got 1 minute, so we won't be able to discuss this any further.
Maybe next time we'll get somebody else in with us.
Because this is an issue that's confronted a lot of people. People have real reservations about how charities are funding themselves and what how much amount of money actually is taken out for administrative purposes, and how much actually ends up with the people for whom you give the money. But I think the key thing that Mufti Sahib said was, please be careful of those who come to your door. Please be careful that they are bona fide people who have got the requisite amount of information and the approvals before you give them. Unless they are people that you fundamentally have 100% of trust in, people that you've dealt with for years and years. So please be vigilant. Assalamu alaikum. I hope that you found this program interesting. And I've been told we have to go. Thank you very much for being with us, and inshallah I'll see you next week on something that may be of interest to you. If not, let me know and we'll try and get somebody there who is somebody that you want to talk about or hear about. In the meantime, may Allah protect you, look after yourself, and please make dua for all of us and the Muslim Ummah wherever you may be watching this program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.